Good morning. This is Miss Cannon, and I'm going to talk to you about the end of World War I. Make sure you're ready to fill out your handout. The first thing that we're going to talk about is Russia. What you need to understand is that Russia is going to struggle throughout World War I because they were the latest group to industrialize. So when we talk about technology in Russia, they are behind. They are a large country. There are many people there, but it's hard to cross their country because it's very large, it's vast, so it takes them a lot longer to mobilize and to cross their nation to get to Germany and fight in World War I. A couple things that you need to understand is that by the end of World War I, Russia is struggling. They're having a very difficult time. The Tsar is going to face opposition. If you do not remember what a Tsar is, put a star next to the word Tsar and write that they are a king or monarch. Okay? Put a king or monarch. What's going to happen is that the Tsar is going to face opposition, which opposition, the root word is oppose, which means to go against, from a group called the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks follow Marxism. Remember that when we talked about Marxism last year, or not last year, but last week, Karl Marx decided or believed that there should be no hierarchy in society, that all people should be equal, and that they should serve the nation, and that is communism. The Bolsheviks will be led by Vladimir Lenin. You need to box out that name. It is very important, and put a star next to the Bolsheviks because this is not the last time that you will hear about them this 6 weeks. One thing that you need to understand is that Russia is going to struggle against Germany, who is their neighbor. And Nicholas II is going to try to lead the military. This is the Tsar during this time, and he's going to actually leave the nation and go fight with his men. He believes in fighting alongside his men in World War I, leaving his wife behind to run Russia, which will cause a lot of difficulty because she's going to get linked up with someone who's not the best individual to assist her in that task. By 1917, the revolution causes the Tsar to step down and a provisional government begins, which means that this is like a provisional government is kind of, they make the provisions, they try to take care of the nation until the nation can establish something more solid. And once again, the Bolsheviks will go after this provisional government as well. What you need to understand is that the Bolsheviks' main goal, and you need to write this on the left side of your paper, the Bolsheviks' main goal is to take over the Russian government and establish a communist nation. The Bolsheviks' main goal is to take over Russia and establish a communist government or nation. Now, the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 is successful. What will happen is Leon Trotsky will assist the Bolsheviks in ending participation in the war. Russia cannot afford to fight any longer in World War I. They're getting their tails kicked. We talked about some previous battles where Russia ultimately had their tails kicked by Germany, but ultimately caused a distraction that allowed France and Britain to regain some of their ground in the Western Front. But as a whole, Russia is not very successful in World War I, and they will take some harsh agreements with Germany to back out of World War I, but ultimately this will lead to a civil war within their own nation. Lenin is the new leader of he's the leader of the Bolshevik Party. He's going to take over Russia as well, and he will establish a new economic plan for Russia, which will be communism, where there will be no private property. Jobs will be allotted to you from the government, and everything is meant to serve the nation. That is what communism is. It's not an I individual situation. It's what's best for the nation as a whole, okay? We do not practice communism in the United States. You guys can own property. You have rights and freedoms, okay? Big thing that is going to rise is the Soviet Union, and you need to put a star or highlight this word because it is very important, and it is going to come into play heavily with the next unit. What you need to understand is that the United States will get involved in the war. For most of the war starts in 1914. We do not enter until 1917, and we practice a concept called isolationism or neutrality. We do not want to get involved. We do not want the war to come to our home front. We do not want to even get our hands dirty in the situation. But in 1917, there will be 2 incidents that will kind of push us and propel us into this war and ready to fight. We had been neutral. Woodrow Wilson. When you hear Woodrow Wilson, I want you to think about World War I. WWI. World War I, Woodrow Wilson, okay? What is going to happen? 2 incidents. The Lusitania is a British passenger ship, okay? It is going to be sunk by German U-boats. German U-boats are pretty much, they're like submarines. So next to the word German U-boat, I would like for you to put like a parenthesis or a star and write submarine or sub, okay? This is what we call them during this time. They have like missile kind of bomb things they can shoot out, and they're going to sink the Lusitania. It kills about 1,200 people, 120 Americans, and this is going to tick us off because there are American passengers on this ship. And then one thing you need to understand is that this ship is a passenger ship, which means it has no ties to the war. The people on this ship are civilians. That's going to offend the Americans. It's going to make Woodrow Wilson very upset, but it's not going to cause us to get into the war immediately. The next issue that will occur, Germany will send a note to Mexico requesting that Mexico start a war with the United States in order to distract America from getting involved in World War I in Europe. What they tell Mexico is that they will offer them back the lands that we took, as in like the areas of Texas and New Mexico, and we'll give that land back. Like Germany promises to give that land back to Mexico if they help and distract the United States in a war so that the United States is unable to get involved in Europe. What you need to understand is that the leader of Mexico plays it very smart and lets the United States know. There will be all types of propaganda and journalism concerning the Lusitania and the Zimmerman note. They'll be published in newspapers. The American public will find out, and we are ready to roll. So by 1917, we enter in the war with fresh recruits and resources. Guys, we are not, in 1917, we are not tired. We have not been fighting a war for 3 years. Britain, France, other nations are getting worn down. They need fresh faces and fresh supplies, and we have them, and we go on into it, okay? Germany does not want America to get involved in the World War I because they know that we will ultimately end the war, okay? During this time, we have established ourselves as a large and powerful nation. We have military forces. We have a Navy. We have an Air Force, and we are ready to roll, okay? And what you need to understand is that ultimately, once America gets involved, this war, I think Germany realizes that the war is on its way to an end, and there will be consequences. And if you look here, you have some U-boat ships right here. That's Lusitania. And then what? And I'm going to pick up with this in a moment. Make sure you fast forward or rewind and make sure you get all your notes filled in.